Longtime viewers will be familiar with the series on this channel that I like to call Everything is Gender. And the thesis of the series is that everything is gender. What I mean by that is that so much of our current politics can be explained by just focusing on gender anxieties, about the way that people feel insecure, in particular, in their masculinity. There's a reason they're trying to outlaw gender studies in red states, and I think it's because they don't want people to figure this stuff out. That's like a half joke, right? The fact of the matter is that, yeah, gender matters as a subject of study, and I think that studying gender and gender identity and gender relationships and the construction of gender can actually help you understand a lot about the current political moment in the same way that the study of race and the construction of race and the history of race and racial inequality can help you understand the current circumstances. That is all to say that we have yet another episode of Everything is Gender, and it comes by way of Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who is the definition of a guy driven by profound gender anxieties. This is a guy who sees manhood as primarily being about the performance of a kind of hyper-masculinity defined by perfectly smooth faces. He hates beards. The display of vanity muscles. You always see him doing bench pressing. Among other exercises. Occasionally he attempts a pull-up. It's not very successful. And a kind of domineering, aggressive affect, which he deployed infamously last year at an event where he gathered top officers and Pentagon officials and berated them about being weak and less than manly.
Move out and draw fire, because we are the War Department. Godspeed.
Please clap.
Unlike, presumably, Pete Hegseth, the definition of manhood. On Wednesday, Defense Secretary Hegseth announced a new program to begin testing soldiers for testosterone levels. And if your testosterone is too low, if you are in the eyes of the military low T, you might be recommended for testosterone treatments. Now, I saw this and I was like, this can't be real. But it is in fact real. Here is the Defense Secretary speaking about it in the studio he had constructed for himself in the Pentagon, because you know the person who leads the largest bureaucracy in the world needs to be worried about what he's going to look like on television.
The Department of War, we have the most elite warriors on the face of the earth. Every single day, you are pushed to your absolute physical and mental limits to master the profession of arms. We demand your all, and you give it. But while we invest heavily in our weapon systems, platforms, and gear, our most decisive tactical advantage will always be the individual warfighter. We have a sacred duty to maintain that advantage, which is why we must constantly look for new ways to optimize your performance, your resilience, and your long-term health. And to meet that commitment today, I'm authorizing a new screening program for testosterone deficiency for our service members, ensuring you have the right testosterone levels to operate at your absolute best.
A few things. The first is that if you're the kind of person to take testosterone levels as a gauge of masculinity, then this has to be one of the most low-T things I've ever seen in my entire life. Setting aside the fact that with this full head of hair and non-receding hairline and lack of facial hair, there's good circumstantial evidence that the Defense Secretary is himself what you might call low-T. It just smacks of this profound masculine anxiety. Like, why would you do this? Why would you do this unless you've constructed in your head the idea that to be a proper soldier, you have to be a kind of stereotypical, cartoonish, manly man? Back in 2022, the Russian government put out these propaganda videos prior to invading Ukraine, as if to say that, look, the Russian military, Russian soldiers are so manly, so powerful, so high T that they can't be stopped. Here's an example of one of them. And of course, what we know is that probably every single person in that video is dead, right? Killed by a bunch of 40-year-old Ukrainian drone operators. Because in modern warfare, hell, in warfare going back centuries, the test of your skill as a soldier wasn't how cut you looked, right? And fighting wars isn't about having the largest collection of manly-looking guys. On a more serious note, testosterone isn't something to be given lightly. It has real side effects. It can interfere with your body's natural production of testosterone. And there's a real possibility that if you are given supplements and are not weaned off them properly, you may have to take them for the rest of your life. Excess testosterone can produce severe medical issues, including higher risk of cancers, like prostate cancer. Too much testosterone can produce high blood pressure, it can produce infertility, and it can result in liver and heart damage. This is actually not a joke. What Hegseth is proposing is something that could actually harm real people. And all for what? For his delusional idea of what the military ought to look like. It is noteworthy that Hegseth is also responsible for ending mandatory flu vaccinations, a decision that resulted in a lot of people getting very sick. What has killed more soldiers than guns or weapons of any kind? Disease. Disease is the primary killer of soldiers in wars. For obvious reasons, soldiers are in close quarters, they share stuff, people get sick. That's why if you're in the US military, if you're in any military, you get a ton of vaccinations. So no flu shots, which the flu can be deadly, can kill you. But testosterone shots, which don't do anything if you don't need the testosterone and could mess you up. It's interesting, Hegseth is one of those type of people who believes that trans women playing women's sports is some kind of terrible violation, that it destroys competition, it's unfair. And there's no evidence of this, right? Especially for younger people who have been on puberty blockers and transition, there's no evidence of this. But even for people who transition post-puberty, taking estrogen actually ends up bringing your physical performance down quite a bit. And beyond that, excess testosterone does not automatically translate to better physical performance. But if you think that testosterone is like the super soldier serum, and it appears that Hegseth may think exactly that, then, those ideas, I guess, make some sort of sense. The last thing I'll say is something serious as well, and it's this. What happens if you're a woman in the military? To me, this seems like another one of Hegseth's efforts to cleanse the military of people he thinks just don't belong. He's painted a target on black service members and women service members, refusing them promotions despite recommendations from promotion boards, removing them from command despite glowing records. All but saying that in his military, if you are a woman or if you are black, you do not belong in any position of authority. And if you are hoping to get some kind of advancement, you should look otherwise. You should leave. Hegseth very clearly believes in an all-male and all-white military. And I think one should understand this policy in those terms. Yet another attempt for him to remake the military in his own image, which is to say, in the image of an anxious and pathetic mediocrity.